that time again.
Hey there everybody, well I wanted to take you through map making here in Forge on Halo 4. Now those of you that have watched me know I love making maps. I don't know, it's for those who know me through just gaming with me or DeviantArt or watching me on here, know that yes, I'm a developer and have worked in the field for some time now. And one thing that I did in Halo Reach, never tried this before, that when I worked at Treyarch at the time, doing the Call of Duty series, I wanted to create the Treyarch office in Halo. And man, I really wish there was some way to take the maps from Halo Reach and bring them into Halo 4, because I worked long and hard on the map. But it was so much fun that I wanted to kind of keep on doing that and build places that were familiar that I kind of already knew. So when Halo 4 came out, the first thing I did was I built the Telltale Games office. Now this is the first map I've built in some time using Halo, and it's a little rough around the edges. This is my first map. Now I want to show you 3 maps tonight, and the first one is going to be the Telltale Games office map. The second one is going to be kind of inspired from Unreal. And then the third one is going to kind of take everything that I've learned from using Halo and then also just, based on the stuff that I typically build normally, and try to bring all those elements together in the third and final map I'm going to show you. So real quick, let's just go into Forge here for the Telltale Games office map, and I can kind of take you through my thought process in it. Now, that's the key point of this video right here. I'm not going to go into the gimmicks. The gimmicks, to me, it's kind of like how my art teacher kind of used to put it, is that when you start to focus on the gimmicks, it's almost kind of like you're focusing mainly on the frosting when you're making a cake, the decoration. You're doing all that stuff first, and then after you get done making the sponge part of the cake, you're just cramming the sponge into the cake, and then, like, it may look kind of pretty. I don't know how, but it may. But I don't know. It's not going to be appetizing or anything like that. And so the whole point of this is kind of show you how to build outwards, how to put those basic building blocks to the thought process, then put in the detail, then put in the decoration so they look all nice and pretty. So first thing I did, first block I laid down. Yes, now we are in the impact map. I know this is starting to get possibly overused, one could say. And I mean, it's a very nice looking map. It's kind of cool to have this free space. That's what I actually liked in Halo 3 and Reach and whatnot. They had like a Forge world that was very open, very vast. So if you wanted to, you could build in the sky, you could build on the ground. And right now, Impact seems to kind of suit those kind of needs here. So this is kind of what the outside looks like. I put TTG, Telltale Games, out there. But really, a nice looking map. So I figured out where the edges of the bounding box out here was, and this was the first piece I laid down. This would have been the the doors you go into when you walk into the Telltale Games area. And when you first walk in, yes, you have an elevator. So I put a little tiny lift right there and stairs, and then down here we have another office, a different kind of company. So didn't bother to put any of that stuff in there. But so yeah, I mean, the key point is I started just laying down, building outwards. Had already kind of a plan in my head what a first was going to look like, which using the office as a basis. Now this is rather big, of course, much bigger than the office as it is with typically Halo stuff. But I was still learning what the size of everything is. I'm thinking about going back and redoing this map and building it more to scale, more to size. But for just a fun map, it's pretty nice. So you walk in here and you have of course, the reception area down there. We'll go there in a second. Over here, we typically, of course, it'd also be like cubicles everywhere. The one thing I did decide on, I didn't want to put in every single cubicle and every single little blocking area, because then it gets, I don't know, to me personally, it's going to start being cluttered unless those cubicles could be knocked over. And but unfortunately, you can't do this. You can't, you put down walls, they're not really They're not going to blow up and move everything. So I decided just to leave those out and make it kind of more based, looking more from the game perspective than the realistic perspective. So typically, yeah, there'd be cubicles all around this area. I did lay down, I made this kind of a King of the Hill map as well. I put that option to be played in there. Certain key offices have certain little fun things in there, so you have a teleporter system in this one. As we go down, of course, this area is the kitchen. So, of course, health area and that kind of stuff in here. We do have a back area. So I did put this, I kind of laid out certain areas. So this is going to be where, if you have two teams for attacker, defender, King of the Hill, so on and so forth, I did kind of put areas that would spawn the separate teams and where their respawn points would be an office area. Now, so all this is pretty normal when it comes as offices go. But the one thing I did want to also put in here was we have a back area we call lovingly Narnia. It's just simply just a back area that, no one really goes into. But because of that, I wanted to embellish a bit because I noticed there's a console here that you can build, a station console that you can grab. And it has this cool, hologram thing. And so one that I wanted to do was kind of make it like the doorway. You're crossing the threshold, using it. And so, you walk in here. Now all of a sudden you have the zombie, effect on your visor, and you can run around a lot faster, of course. This is kind of just where I just focused on having a lot of fun. Also trying out different things such as using the man cannons with the gravity, putting a sword that was fixed in there, so I tested where the man cannons would shoot you across. And I've noticed so far, because that's a key thing also, is test your map. If you can, grab a bunch of friends and test. You know how everyone's saying, like, why does this game suck? Why does the map suck? Didn't QA test this at all? Heard that a lot. Well, then do that with your own maps. Test it out a lot. See where the choke points are. Is anybody able to easily get a certain weapon that gives them dominance over everybody else? Or do they have to go out of their way? That can also lead to it not being that easy to get said weapon. And so I tested that. That's also where I, end up putting the King of the Hill kind of points. And, also with the teleporter system, because there's very few closed rooms in here. But, I always try and make sure that there is another way out of a room, so it's never just kind of like an area where you get stuck in and you're kind of screwed unless you kill your attacker. So try to make it completely even, get around. There's a couple mongoose in here and that kind of stuff. But overall, that's the Telltale Games office map. And let's get out of here and show you the other ones here real quick.
Victory!
Yay! Oh my God, I won! That was so hard, so hard. So this next one is the one that kind of came from Unreal Tournament area. It was a premise because in Unreal Tournament, typically it was a lot of you had two towers, and you're having to run back and forth. But a lot of times, you would end up using some kind of cannon sometimes to jettison you across the way. And so I was thinking about that, and then I remembered that Shrek movie. I forget which one, but it was the joke of, one Starbucks gets demolished, and then they run across the street, and they go into another Starbucks. And so Starbucks versus Starbucks is not too bad. You can't also have Starbuck in Starbucks versus Starbucks, but that's probably another map. So put this in here. The only tough part actually about this was once I had the premise of the two towers and when I knew kind of an idea of how I wanted to build it, the only tough part is that I knew whatever I was building on one side, I'd have to build on the other side. And I really wish there was some kind of like copy and paste, like you make a bounding box or something like that, and then you just copy whatever's in the box, and then you can paste it. Sadly, since they don't have that, whatever I built on one side of the map, here, let me show you. So I started with the blue tower over here. So whatever I built, I started once again, basic blocks, putting everything down. Whatever I built over here, I end up having to build the exact same thing over there. And it wasn't just a generalization, I'll just slap it there. Oh no, we're talking about meticulous. I made sure millimeter by millimeter, I was trying to make sure it was just exactly the same. And so when I did this, the only tough part was making sure that the man cannons kind of synced up to each other. Because once again, since I can't just copy and paste everything, I had to kind of measure things out in my own little way. And one of the ways I also did that is testing out the man cannon, that when it shot me over, I would try and make sure that it made sure I landed right there in the center. And so made sure, to do the same thing on the other side. And this is also where I started playing with more kind of realistic height when you're inside a room and that kind of stuff. And I realized that everything seems to be 2x2. So what I mean by that is that if you go down to structure, building blocks, and 2x2 flat, let me turn on the rotation snap here, that I noticed that, so you see the big windows here, the double windows, that it was pretty much kind of the same area of the 2x2. So I started trying to make sure that everything kind of was at that size. We kept to the 2x2. So, I measured this all out, put in the floor, put in the ceiling / floor here, measured out 2x2, and then once again put in the ceiling / floor up there. So just measuring everything out and kind of getting everything to that simple shape. Once I did, after you get all those simple shapes, after you get your ideas put in, then start going in and putting in the detail. Such as consoles, little boxes, so on and so forth. But once again, there was one little element that was missing. Everything was the same, across the board, one side, all the same. All the detail was the same. But as you notice, everything's kind of like by a 45, 90 degree angle. Everything is very clean and precise. Like most of the maps, when it comes to Halo, a lot of it is just very precise and clean and doesn't necessarily look lived in. So that is kind of my final showing with this next and final map, is that when it comes down to it, if you really want to make a map seem even more lifelike, more real when you're putting in those details, focus on trying to not make sure everything looks like it's on a grid, that it actually has looked in. So what I ended up doing was, in Erosion, I noticed there was an area that wasn't really being used. It was a big area, and I thought it could possibly go great for this map idea. And the map idea was, what if there was kind of like this structure, you had to use man cannons to get around, but it was kind of crumbling. It was already being it was used, as it were. And so that's where I kind of came up with this idea for using this Erosion map. And what I basically did is I deleted everything when I first got in here. Here, let's let this load up. I hope I have enough time, since I'm recording myself here on my iPad right now. So just to quickly go, so I had this premise of these certain building blocks. I first went in here and I tried to figure out where that invisible wall is, where you start, getting returned to battlefield. So once I had that figured out, I put in the simple structure of just laying everything down. Now, key point, when you do start to lay down things down, take the time to lock everything in. It's a huge time saver, and I love that 343 put this in there. But everything I try and lock down, other than maybe some of the detail stuff, so I can move it around a bit. But I knew I wanted to put the structure down. I knew I wanted to go up certain levels, since the man cannons are going to be shooting people across, and if you get too low, unfortunately, not only, of course, will you die in the water, but as you can see, return to battlefield. So I knew I had to get everything up high enough. So once I put down the first man cannon, I started figuring out, okay, where is that going to shoot me? Where is that going to take me? And I tried to make sure that wherever that was, that right at the arc, right when I started going down, that's when I knew I wanted to put the other man cannon there. And so that's where it kind of led me to go, okay, well then, I don't want it to just shoot me over to another man cannon, or to have another man cannon I can just run over there real quick and get out of the way, because I want people to have the chance to either snipe others or to be sniped. You want to have that risk and reward system constantly throughout your map. And so I kind of came up with an idea of using slip and slides and that kind of stuff, water parks, is, if somebody had to go over here, then they could use this decline to go across, run, and then it would put them to a part where they're already running when they land. And so it's just thinking up kind of fun stuff like that, where you can give people the chance to both use strategy of killing or be killed. And so as you can see, once I had all these building blocks down, I had everything figured out, that's where I started making everything less perfect. In the sense of, I started over here, making it look like, you know, pieces were falling down, that this was starting to kind of erode away. Erosion, yeah. And started getting into that. And what I basically did was I'd magnetize things to certain areas. And once it looked like it was perfect, then I would go ahead and take off the rotation snap and the magnetism and start to just rotate it ever so slightly until it started looking like, okay, things are falling down and falling apart, which led then to this area. You know, if it was all leaning towards one way, made the man cannon also lean a bit. And then also it eventually led to like, well, what if a platform completely just was demolished? It fell down. And so then that's what led me to this area. Now, this still isn't finished. I'm still placing places. I was happy to find out that what's kind of cool is the crates, if you actually use these, they actually will float in the water. So then, you know, I knew, okay, cool, I can start laying this kind of stuff down and having things float around. I can put stuff near explosions and they'll go flying off. Just anything you can make it look lived in will help. And then last but not least is the spawning and respawn points. I figured, you know what, I'm going to actually place all the spawn and respawn points here in this map, possibly up here and around here, maybe a little bit over here of the respawn. But I was going to leave this and structure over here entirely untouched when it came to spawn and respawn. Reason being is because I'm putting a ordnance drop zone, which is going to be put the only sniper rifle in the map. And so, once again, it's at risk and reward. So I'm going to be putting this sniper rifle here, but I want to make it so people actually have to work to get to that point. Because if they're going to get the sniper rifle and be able to snipe people with those powerful weapons, you got to give them that buffer. You can't just give them right off the bat, or else, once again, it just starts to feel a little unfair or too much of a, you know, crazy on the map. So once you have all that kind of stuff figured out, and then just keep on building offwards. I mean, I still only use 7,295 out of the possible 10,000. Granted, you don't have to use it all, but I'm just saying if there is more ways that you can flesh it out, get everything even. Once again, I'm pulling friends in here to play these maps. Then I can start figuring out, oh, okay, need to add this here, take away from here, and just keep on kind of going back and forth. You know, I figured that when people are getting shot from man cannons, I started putting these these trait zones. I'm using the alpha, and it's a very simple trait zone. All it is, under movement, all I did was take out the fall damage. So nothing special, just so that way that when they're using the man cannons and they're jumping from place to place, they're not getting hurt or killed doing so. Did the same thing for this area. So if somebody actually wanted to take the chance of trying to get a rocket launcher down here amongst all this explosive, you know, fusion coils and whatnot, that when they drop down here, I don't want them dying from the drop. You know, there's a bunch of different ways I probably could have figured this out, but, you know, I thought this would be the simplest and easiest way and make it just the most fun. And then the cool thing is that if they're able to get through this without getting killed, because it's the lowest point in the map, everyone can snipe from above. Then, you know, you have a teleporter right up here that will take them out here and finally out of harm's way. That's if they can make it down there. And so, once again, it's the give and take, the risk and reward. So, I hope this helps somewhat when it comes to your map building. Just try and work from a premise, work from an idea, and then just kind of build outwards. And